The MacBook Air update that we've been waiting for ever since we got the disappointing M2 chip is finally arriving. In this video, I will share the 5 changes that will make it the most powerful MacBook Air we've ever had while being super thin, sleek, and perfectly silent. The first update is something that most reviewers don't even focus on, but it's a shame because it makes a big real-world difference, and that is Wi-Fi 6E, but not for the reason that you might think. The M2 MacBook Air uses Wi-Fi 6, the same thing with the M1s and even the older Intel MacBooks. Apple has been using this same old tech for so long, so it was weird that the M2 Airs were still stuck with it when the $599 M2 Mac Mini was updated to Wi-Fi 6E. Now, it is true that most people don't have Wi-Fi 6E routers, but you don't need to have one to benefit from this upgrade, because with it, even if you're using an older router, the M3 MacBook Air's maximum bandwidth doubles from 1200 megabit per second up to 2400. And with it, the range is also improved. Now, I pay for 1200 megabit per second internet, but with the M2 Air, I could only get about half of that speed, 663, when near my router in the living room. With the Wi-Fi 6E Mac, I got 1159, so almost twice the speed, and actually what I am paying for. Now, if you don't have really fast internet, you'll still get benefits because in my front yard, I would only get an unusable 4 megabit per second with dropouts, but now it is more than 3 times faster at 15 with a solid signal. That is because the M3 Air will also get 7 160 megahertz channels or 14 80 megahertz channels, which means less interference from your neighbors' networks. So if you have areas of your house with bad signals or slow speeds, that will be a big improvement. With number 2, we are getting into performance. Now, unfortunately, we are not going to get any upgrades to the base amount of RAM because even the $1,600 14-inch MacBook Pro only comes with 8 gigabytes. Thankfully, if you're wanting to buy a base model, Clean My Mac X makes the experience much better. Now, I've been using my Vision Pro everywhere, and you guys have seen so much of the behind the scenes recently, both here at the studio and at home, and like most creatives, when in the zone creating, things can get messy. It took me hours to clean my garage, but thankfully with your Mac, you can go from files everywhere filling up your drive to a nice clean Mac in seconds with our sponsor's app, Clean My Mac X. Clean My Mac makes this easy, and SmartScan does 3 jobs with 1 click to clean up, protect, and speed up your Mac after you're done creating. I've used it for 4 years now because it's fast and easy. Space Lens finds and deletes a bunch of hidden junk files and large files that you forgot about. Optimization increases your Mac's performance, and I use the memory free up button all the time, and it is especially important with base level Macs. Embrace your creative mess and use Clean My Mac X for the rest so your computer won't be slowing you down. Try it with a 7-day free trial by using link in the video description. Now, thankfully, even though the RAM is the same and the storage is the same 256 gigabyte like the M2, Apple has been improving their mistake with the base storage that we got with the slower M.2, even though the M1 was fast. Now, we're not sure exactly what the speeds will be and if Apple will use 2 NANDs again because they're trying to cut costs, but I've seen M3 iMacs get 2374 right compared to about 1400. Of course, if you upgrade to 512, then you will get about 3000, so that is a worthwhile update. Now, for number 3, we have CPU performance. Now, I think that most people would say that for regular tasks, even the M2 is good enough, but the M3 series are very impressive chips. In single core speeds, the difference is the biggest that we have seen in many years, and yes, you can feel it when using the new machines. And the difference in multi-core is really big, hitting 11,889 in Geekbench 6, over 38% faster than the M1 and about 21.5% faster than the M2. And the M2 was only about a 12% increase from the M1. Now, I remember back in the Intel days when a new Intel chip was only 5 or maybe 8% faster than the previous generation, so these are really impressive improvements. What blows my mind even more is that comparing the new cheap M3 MacBook Air to the M1 Max MacBook Pro that costs $3,500, it's only ever so slightly behind in multi-core CPU performance while being so thin and light and less than a third of the cost. And of course, in single-core performance, it actually beats out that 16-inch machine. This is where the real performance and value starts to shine. And if we look at real-world tough tasks like working on high-resolution raw images in Lightroom and then exporting them, an M3 Mac with 16 gigs of RAM now beats out a $2,000 M2 Pro MacBook Pro by a good amount. And even comparing it to a beastly M2 Max, which has been out for only a year and costs $3,500, the M3 Air is closer to it than the M2 Pro, being beaten by only 17 seconds. That is impressive. Number 4 is new graphics technology. If we look at the raw graphics compute performance between M2 and M3 models with the same core counts, the performance gain is very minimal, pretty much negligible. But with these chips, Apple focused on new technologies to make real-world improvements. For gaming performance, the difference starts to improve at 18%, but let's be honest, how many people use their Macs to game? The real improvement is with programs that can use the new ray tracing hardware for compute, and thankfully more and more are starting to use it along with other new compute improvements. For example, in Blender, we saw a decent gain between M1 and M2, mostly because of the extra graphics cores, but with M3, even with the same core count, we have more than a 2x speed improvement, which is crazy. Comparing the M1 Max in a tougher test, the cheap M3 is now just a few seconds behind the M1 Max, which was a crazy powerhouse designed for this specific task and released just a few years ago. And now this level of performance is possible for such a low price. Looking at Figma web design, the new M3 actually beats out the M1 Max, taking 1 minute and 36 seconds instead of 1 minute 56, another improvement that is mind-boggling. So Apple has done a really good job making real-world improvements with this new chip, even if some benchmarks might not show it off well, all while being super efficient with the new 3nm design, which you can only get with Apple products. And that leads me into number 5, battery life. If you look at regular specs on Apple's website, the M3 lineup chips that have come out don't look that impressive, and that is because they are already quoting battery life based on very minimal power usage cases like watching videos or simple web browsing. But if you paid attention to Apple's keynote, they showed off just how impressive it is when you're actually using it. Comparing the M3 to M1 chips, you get the same CPU performance at half the power requirements as M1. And if you watched our M2 videos, you would know that it was not that much better than M1. Now, this is super impressive because most of the time when you're working on something, you're not maxing out your CPU. And now that we have even more CPU performance, you might need even less of it while doing the task quicker. And with ray tracing being used, we have found that it actually uses about half the power while being twice as fast. So the same thing goes for graphics compute performance. You get the same performance at half the power as well. That means that you will be getting 2, 3, or even 4 more hours of real-world battery life for mixed tasks. And putting it into the low power mode, the M3 MacBook Air is going to be getting about the same performance as the M2 at full power while using way less battery life. So that's going to give you shockingly good battery, but also have no heat buildup in the MacBook, which also means no throttling. So even though on the outside, the M3 MacBook Airs will be the same, internally, they are on a whole nother level with performance, efficiency, and connectivity. And if you can afford it and want to have a MacBook that will last a long time, this is an amazing machine. I'll go ahead and leave some links down below next to the Clean My Mac X link so that you guys can keep your Mac clean and running fast. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Click that circle to subscribe and check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I will see you in the next one.